A flurry of players, free agents, trade targets have come off the board in a hurry. Did the Giants miss out on these players, or do they have just other plans?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes 3 days a week for now, back to 5 when pitchers and catchers report in February, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show since prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And coming up on today's show, I want to get into the fact that a bunch of players between the last episode last week and today on Monday have either signed or been traded for. And specifically, the first base market kind of went bonkers. No, Corbin Burnes didn't sign. To me, I think the Giants remain the favorites on Corbin Burnes, and he's, if you ended up with Willy and Corbin Burnes, you would end up with two of the top 5 free agents in this class for sure. So a lot remains to be seen, but all of a sudden, guys who we were thinking might be fits and targets for the Giants, like Paul Goldschmidt and, trade-wise, Josh Naylor, first baseman, and Nathaniel Lowe, who is also a first baseman with the Texas Rangers, because all of a sudden it was seeming like, the more I thought about it, the more I think that you could go into the season with Wilmer Flores and LaMonte Wade Jr., specifically LaMonte Wade Jr., filling out a position, one position between the two of them. But there's a DH in the National League now. And so if you look at the current depth chart, I say, who plays first against a righty? Well, it would be LaMonte Wade Jr. But then who's DHing against a righty? It would be either Wilmer Flores or Gerard Encarnacion. And I just think that is both first base and DH are spots where you could afford to upgrade. And I do want to point out Bob Melvin at the winter meetings was interviewed, and I listened to the whole thing, and he talked about not really wanting, or that they were planning to have, he talked about that they were not wanting like a dedicated DH, which was what, Jorge Soler was, for example. And so anybody like that, there aren't a ton of those kinds of guys in general, but you look at guys who can really hit, but they just can't defend, like Jock Peterson, for example. He just signed as well with the Texas Rangers, but like he kind of made sense, but also he didn't, if you think about two things. Number one, you have to platoon him, and then you've got to find the platoon partner, and you're already platooning LaMonte Wade, and you've got Wilmer Flores, but he can't do both, And so, I don't know. I just didn't think Jock Peterson. Plus, he just didn't. It kind of bad vibes, I guess, with him. But anyway, Nathaniel Lowe and specifically Josh Naylor. I think Naylor brings like a tenacity to the field, and he goes to the Arizona Diamondbacks in this trade that really, it didn't seem like the Diamondbacks gave up all that much to get Josh Naylor. And so when I look at that, I wonder, what are the Giants planning? Because to me, I don't know. Maybe they really wanted Josh Naylor and they missed out. That's the thing, is we never really know. But Josh Naylor, I'm trying to see what his contract status is. So it's just 1 year remaining of arbitration eligibility, projected to earn about $12 million. His salary is to be determined. But that's a really nice fit there for the Giants. Potentially, but it's gone, and now he goes to a division rival, and he doesn't strike out a lot. He's only 27 years old, so kind of a ideal type of player and fit, but he's gone. And then you look at, okay, we talked about veteran players like a Paul Goldschmidt being possible fits, and there was, he's older, he's 37. He's declined steadily since winning the MVP a couple years ago, like to the point of having a league average season with the bat last year. And when you look at the age of 37, it definitely wasn't. I like Naylor more than Goldschmidt, but Goldschmidt is also gone. He signs with the New York Yankees for like 1 year and $12.5 million. And for Nathaniel Lowe, first baseman with the Rangers, who is a good hitter, and I kind of forget, it's irrelevant at this point what his defensive capabilities are, but I think all of these guys, like Goldschmidt, Naylor, and Lowe, I wouldn't really be talking about them as a potential target if I hadn't looked and seen that they were at least okay defensively at first base. Because if you got one of these players, two are lefties, one's a righty, then they could play first base or they could DH. And the same thing with LaMonte Jr. and Wilmer Flores. And you got some coverage if somebody's hurt. Like all three of them are capable of playing first base. But those options are gone. And so I really wonder, I have absolutely no clue what the opening day first base and DH situation is going to be. Right now, I mean, the thing about the DH, and this is what Bob Melvin said, is that they don't want a dedicated DH. So the more that the fact that they didn't end up with any of these first basemen who weren't that expensive to acquire, both financially in the case of Goldschmidt and then in prospect capital, as they say, in the case of the others. I mean, Nathaniel Lowe, the reliever that the Nationals gave up, reminds me numbers wise, not ERA, but the peripherals and stuff of like Ryan Walker, like really electric looking arm. I haven't seen him pitch a lot, but just the numbers. But so I don't know. I'm not giving up Ryan Walker for a short-term first base answer. I'd rather just have signed like a Paul Goldschmidt, not give up my stud closer. But regardless, it makes me think that they are just going to acquire a player who can play, whether it's outfield or first base or second base, or probably not third or short, because those two, Adames and Chapman, play like every day. But somebody somewhere, and then they just kind of rotate guys through the DH spot, because that's what Bob Melvin said. And so maybe they're not looking for that dedicated spot. Now, some of you may think Wade and Flores, I got a lot of pushback on Twitter by saying I think Wade and Flores can form a formidable platoon at either first base or DH. Wade has the 11th highest on-base percentage in baseball since the start of 2 seasons ago. Out of like 144 qualified players, his on-base percentage is 11th. And so he's a solid player. He belongs in a starting lineup, and that starting lineup is probably going to be the Giants unless they make some kind of wild trade. But then that same situation still exists where you may bring somebody in for like first base, but then what the heck is going on at DH? So those questions remain. A lot of offseason to go. I think the Giants have a lot of work to do. There's Corbin Burnes, and then there's the offensive side, and I think there's also work to do on the offensive side in addition to like go get Corbin Burnes. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to get to mailbag questions that relate to this. Like, why aren't we talking more about Anthony Santander as a fit? We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here. Don't remind 49ers fans, so most of you listening. But it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. And as I've been saying, with this $5 bet, I'm looking at the most favorable odds I can find and then hopefully coming through on that and then getting $250 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more mailbag questions. Thanks again to everyone who submitted questions on Twitter last week, or X, I guess it's called now. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For me and my family, we're doing Christmas on the 24th, and so there's not going to be an episode tomorrow. I may do a Christmas episode. Most of you will be having Christmas, and I'll be on the clock here, or we'll do Thursday and Friday. I'm not exactly sure. It's obviously Christmas week, and so the schedule could be a little wonky, but we'll get you 3 episodes this week. Thanks for making us your first listen today. And anyway, just getting to the questions. Ryan says, I'm very curious why the Anthony Santander market has been so quiet. He fits a lot of needs for some real power and can fill that Wade type role player or that Wade type role he has played a little at first base, can play left field against lefties and be replaced by Yaz in later innings or latter innings, and can get the bulk of the DH play. All right, so let me, I'm a numbers guy. I don't watch 162 games a year of Anthony Santander. I've certainly seen him, familiar with his game, and I know that he just had a monster offensive season. When you look at the home run total is what really jumps off the page. He just had a season in which he hit 44 home runs, but even so, only, dare I say, a 129 weighted runs created plus. That's good, though. I mean, I'm not trying to say that's bad. And then if you look at the steamer projections, 119 weighted runs created plus, low, actually normal batting average, 245 projection. It was 235 this year. His on-base percentage this year, 2024, was just 308. But the slugging was 506, isolated power 271, batting average on balls in play just 225. His expected weighted on base average was just 328, and then his actual was 345. So that expected number is not so great. And so did he have a monster season, or was it kind of, that ballpark in Baltimore, you can get some pretty cheap home runs if you're a left-handed hitter. I don't know. Actually, we can look and will look at how many home runs would have gone out at Oracle if he had played all of his games there. We're able to do that now with Baseball Savant data, which is like StatCast data. So anyway, he was a good hitter. Man, if you look at the spray chart, you're talking about a lot of balls into McCovey Cove. He hit a lot of homers to right field, a lot down the line. There were quite a few to like right center, but way out. So he may have hit them out. And then he hit quite a few opposite field home runs as well. And that left field in Baltimore got extremely deep, and he still hit quite a few out. Hit looks like about 10 out to left, including 6 or so over that really deep left field wall. So that's impressive. But base running value was 13th percentile. Fielding value was 25th percentile. Sprint speed 18th percentile. So he's kind of got one skill, and that's that he hits. And he also chases a lot. If you look at his career, like just chase rates are 16th percentile, and then previously 17th percentile, 13th percentile, 7th percentile. He's not fast. Sprint speed, like I said, 18th percentile. Outs above average, never good. He does have a above average arm, and his expected on-base percentages are not very good. So, okay, how many home runs would he have hit if all of his games were in San Francisco? It says 30. And I get a lot of people online anytime I post this information who say, yeah, and actually I see it on like YouTube with that show with like AJ Pierzynski, who's always complaining about something. And he was saying, that means nothing. It doesn't account at all for like wind and cold and this and that, but it does. If you just literally read right below, it tells you how many home runs would have been hit in other stadiums. The adjusted view here accounts for different wall heights, distances, and environmental effects using StatCast Park Factor data. So you know how before the game they show all the wind patterns and all that, and they can show you how many feet a ball loses in the air. You've seen these graphics if you've watched a lot of games. Well, this is taking that into account, and the wall heights and the distances. So maybe it can't take into account the feeling in the batter's box of like being in the cold or whatever, and that's relevant. But it is doing its best to account for all that stuff. And anyway, he hit 44 home runs. 30 would have been homers at Oracle Park. And it's hard to find a stadium that would have been worse for him. Oakland, 30. Kansas City, 29. And then Pittsburgh, 29. But that's a lot of missing home runs. And in his career, he's got 156 homers, and 121 would have been homers at Oracle. And again, that's assuming all your games are at Oracle. So anyway, we've done our little homework there. The issue, I don't really have an issue. Like I think that I wasn't really thinking much about Anthony Santander, but your question made me think about him a little more seriously, because that is like some serious thump. 44 home runs just certainly gets my attention, even if you're not going to hit that many in Oracle. And I don't know, he is a switch hitter, and you look at the career splits, he's been 16% above average against lefties and against righties, 11% above average. So and the strikeout rate is really low against righties, and there are more righties than lefties. So yeah, he's intriguing to me. By position, he played 130 games for the Orioles in right, 25 at DH, and 1 at first this year. And when I look and scroll down and just kind of get a sense, because it's not all about outs above average, we should look at defensive runs saved and all kinds of other stuff. He's only played 73 career innings at first, so he's barely played there. All 73 innings were in the last 2 years, although 2024 it was just 1 inning. 2023, 72 innings. And he did fine. It's a tiny sample, though, 73 innings. He's not done well in left. He's played a little center in 2019, and so clearly not a center fielder. Most of his career has been spent in right, where he actually has +9 defensive runs saved in his career. The last 3 seasons combined, it's -1. And the last 3 seasons combined by outs above average, it's -2. So a capable right fielder, I think that you may be onto something, because that kind of bat and a switch hitter, someone like the way that the Giants lineup looks right now, it looks like they need a left-handed hitter, but a switch hitter is even better, because they are a left-handed hitter when you want them to be, but they're also a right-handed hitter when you want them to be. So it's been a while. Pablo Sandoval, since the Giants had a good switch hitting hitter. I know Patrick Bailey switch hits. I'm possibly forgetting somebody, but the kicker is, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is that Anthony Santander got the qualifying offer from the Orioles and he turned it down. And so in order to sign Anthony Santander, the Giants would be giving up 2 draft picks, 2 more. They already are giving up 2 for signing Willy Adames, plus $1 million in their international bonus pool period, in their international bonus pool for signing international players. And I don't know if there's another penalty for bonus pool money, but I know you lose 2 more draft picks if you sign another qualifying offer free agent. And the thing that gets me is they're also very much linked to Corbin Burnes, to the point where I would even say it's more likely than not that they end up with Corbin Burnes. That's just my opinion based on reading the tea leaves, as John Heyman likes to say. But all of a sudden you're talking about, okay, are you going to sign 3 players who rejected the qualifying offer and give up, I don't even know. I assume the rule continues where you lose it's like your 2nd and 5th highest draft picks for the first one. And this is if you paid luxury tax last year, which the Giants did. They exceeded the luxury the first threshold. And then I believe it's still your 2nd and 5th highest picks, but then it becomes like your 3rd and 6th picks, or 3rd and 7th. It gets confusing. So every time it's just, I think you just lose your 2nd and 5th highest picks. But once you've lost picks, your 2nd and 5th highest become different. So you just keep losing your 2nd and 5th highest picks, and all of a sudden you're not drafting basically in the first 10 rounds. You get a first round pick and then just not much else after that. So they also did that last year though. They sacrificed picks for Blake Snell and Matt Chapman, and so do they want to put themselves in that position? I don't know. I think they ultimately may with Corbin Burnes. But that's part of the reason why Santander hasn't been brought up too much by me. Somebody asked in the last mailbag, like, who else besides Burnes would be worth signing in terms of players who received and rejected the qualifying offer. And I mentioned Alex Bregman, and I continue to feel that way. Like, if you have a shot to sign an Alex Bregman, like, I would say put your Tyler Fitzgerald hype on hold and just figure it out. Like, let him play the outfield, let him move around the diamond. I know they kind of have said they don't want to do that, but Alex Bregman playing second base, if you had Chapman and Adames and Bregman like all locked up long term, that would be an incredible threesome there in the infield. And then first base, and Tyler Fitzgerald could DH. I know you'd be wasting some athleticism there, but then you could give guys days off like Chapman and Adames, and when I say off, I mean at the DH spot where they're not on the field. And that's kind of what Bob Melvin was alluding to. So I would love for them to be like a dark horse for Alex Bregman. I think Santander also makes sense. And if they came away, oh my gosh, with Adames and Bregman and Corbin Burnes, like I would just be over the moon. So anyway, we will get to more mailbag questions coming up in just a minute. Talking about Mike Yastrzemski, and if that's a spot they need to update on, that is the Santander spot. So we'll get into that whole discussion momentarily. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Game Time. I love going to live events during the holidays. I have a lot of fond memories from childhood, just going out and spending the holiday season at a live event. It's just a special time. And Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I've done that before, and not on Game Time, and it's just not fun, and it's a lot of wasted time. I love that Game Time gives me images of seat views, especially for places I've never been to before, panoramic views, and then also the lowest price guarantee, which means if you get or find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, as promised, we are going to get to more questions, and I will answer them. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen 3 days a week for now, but every day for most of the year. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we also do emergency episodes. So if we've done 3 episodes in the week, this happened with the Adames signing. He signed on a Saturday, or the reports came out on a Saturday, and we just did an emergency episode. So if anything happens, as long as I'm able to, I'm going to be immediately analyzing it and putting out a podcast as soon as humanly possible. So just to let you know, to look out for that if the Giants do anything, which I should be refreshing Twitter as I speak. And yeah, it looks like no news right now. And then once Christmas Eve gets here, usually nothing, happens until after Christmas. So we'll see. But continuing through the questions, there's a bunch about Yastrzemski. So thank you, Ryan, for the question about Santander. Dom says, do you think Yaz being on the trade block means we are planning on signing another outfielder or letting Matos/McRae play? NDE The Rock says, we need to improve from Yaz and Wade, but we also need left-handed hitting. Should the Giants trade Wade and a pitching prospect or Schmidt for Josh Naylor or another left-handed hitter? And then you wrote a name, Willy. I think I know who that player is, but I got to look him up, actually. Willy Abreu of the Red Sox. Yeah, I mean, I was unaware of the really good season that he just had as a left-handed hitter, as an outfielder, as a good defender. Yeah, I don't know if the Red Sox are at all looking to move him, but he's coming off a very nice season with Boston. So Naylor's gone. I think you were onto something with Naylor and a pitching prospect. That's ultimately what it took for the Diamondbacks to get Naylor. So I think it's a good question, a fair question. If Willy Abreu is on the trade block, then that is definitely a guy who looks like on first glance like he makes sense. He's 25. I'm not exactly sure why the Red Sox would be looking to trade him. And I guess I'll have to relook at your question as I'm trying to look up their... Yeah, he projects as their starting right fielder in a platoon, it looks like. So what was your question? Basically, pitching prospect or Schmidt for a player like Willy. I think it's very different because Naylor had just 1 year of team control remaining, whereas Abreu with the Red Sox is under team control through 2029. So the cost would just be a lot higher because of the amount of years you'd be getting. And so continuing on through the questions, Nick says, is Yaz really on the trade block? Seems to not add up. If the plan is to get him off the books, wouldn't Buster have just non-tendered his friend to let him have control of his own destiny and probably get more money in free agency? So all of these questions are valid. I think I kind of answered NDE The Rock's question. And you're right about left-handed hitting. Like when I look at the lineup, it looks like it could use a lefty. But if it's Bregman, I think that I haven't looked closely currently at his platoon splits, but he's a good enough player that I don't care if he's not a lefty. I want him in the thick of my lineup. And if it's Santander, it's even better as a switch hitter. So it's a good question from Dom. I do not know if they were to trade Yastrzemski, if you go out and sign a player like Willy Adames, though, I don't think the plan would be to basically trade a Yastrzemski and just give a position to players who may very well fail. I think that the season is long, guys get injured, young players get opportunities, and you've already got a young player getting an opportunity in Elliot Ramos. Jung-Hoo Lee is a young player. Matos and McRae I view as more depth right now and not guys that they want to just hand the starting job to unless they really upgrade elsewhere. Like maybe if they get a Bregman, then maybe they do dedicate that position to more youth. But I would think it would be more likely that if Yastrzemski was traded, then they would try to sign an outfielder, and it would open up a whole bunch of possibilities, not just Santander, although there are a lot of strings attached with a lot of the outfielders that are out there. You've got Jurickson Profar, very bad defender, coming off a fluky, crazy, great year. And you've got Teoscar Hernandez coming off a really strong season with the Dodgers, but another right-handed hitter, and also coming with the qualifying offer. And really, if you look at the defense in 2024, -8 defensive runs saved, -9 outs above average. The career defensive numbers out there are not very good. They're a little better in right, I suppose, but in his career, -27 defensive runs saved and -34 outs above average. So not a guy known as a very good defender, but had a very nice season with the bat. And so there's just not like a perfect solution here in free agency. And those are kind of the only outfielders in free agency who stand out to me as strong fits in a way. And even so, there's issues with both. I'd probably rather have Santander because of the switch hitting, and you wouldn't be giving the Dodgers draft pick compensation. You'd be giving it to the Orioles. He's also younger than Teoscar Hernandez, and the defense appears to be better. But that's just me, I guess. But anyway, I do agree they need to upgrade. I've said all along that right field and first base and DH are kind of the spots that look to be the most upgradable. Although you could say second base as well if Alex Bregman somehow like falls into your lap. I don't think that's likely, but I wouldn't rule the Giants out on having interest in Alex Bregman. Like, he's a good enough player that he's worth considering strongly. But also, I think so are Santander and Teoscar Hernandez. So a lot of offseason left. There are other trade candidates, but a bunch went off the board, so we just wanted to address all that. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again on Wednesday at the earliest, because again, Christmas for me is tomorrow. So happy holidays. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.